Steve, can you pass me down an agenda? Because he changed it.
Oh, here.
No.
I don't. No. I already typed it in, so I don't need the hard
I have an
copy.
extra one here.
Okay. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, we ready? Ready? So let's do Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, corrections, additions, deletions?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, agenda approved. Approval of the minutes from our June, what was that, 13th meeting? Is that the 13th? I think it was.
Are we going to have minutes tonight?
She's going to
She could take it from the
transcribe
tape.
them from the
Video?
video, yeah, because she's on vacation.
Gotcha.
But the minutes from last month's meeting, are there any changes, additions, corrections, or deletions? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Make a motion, we accept the June 13th minutes as submitted.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comment?
Not this evening.
No? Okay, okay. Reports and follow-up. The chief is out of jurisdiction, so we are honored to have Detective Sergeant Lucchese to fill in for him. While the chief is away, he is also the acting officer in charge. So he's lucked out and is going to present the chief's report, and I promised we would be very, very gentle.
Forgive me if I don't present it in the way he normally does. But on the first page, he outlines that there were no personnel complaints. We had 5 commendations in the month. The report also includes defensive action reports, 3 canine reports, no injuries to department members, no pending personnel complaints, no civil lawsuits received. As far as changing personnel, we received resignations from part-time dispatcher Kevin McElwain, part-time dispatcher Katie Robinson, as well as part-time police officers Mike Ashford, Lance Edelman, and Jonathan Wilson. Part-time dispatcher Heather Fries was sworn in as a part-time police officer in order to complete phase 2 of the police academy, which she will be actually finishing on Saturday. She'll be starting her field training next week, or actually, sorry, next week. No disciplinary action, and no equipment that was purchased, leased, lost, or damaged, and the training report is attached. I don't know if the chief goes over all of the general comments and meetings attended.
No, basically all he would do is read the defensive action reports and then the commendation reports. You know, just a brief summary of what they are.
I'll start with the good then.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Were the resignations anticipated?
No, no, not at all. Other than, I'm sorry, Officer Edelman, yes, he had spoken with the chief a couple months ago and discussed his resigning, and so that was somewhat expected. Officers Ashford, not really, and same with McElwain and Robinson.
So if I can ask, if somebody resigns, what's the typical protocol in terms of whether they leave right away, do they stay on, how is it determined?
They'll usually give a couple weeks notice. In all of these cases, it wasn't, there was some notice that was given. Dispatcher Robinson sent a letter, spoke with me, followed up with a letter. She finished out her tours for the month of June and then took resignation effective June 30th. Officer Wilson was actually more unexpected. There was really no notice on his. Officer Ashford, there was notification on that one as well. He is actually taking, he will be starting the police academy for the NYPD.
So and it's important to note that these are part-time and not full-time.
Yeah, right,
officers.
that's important.
So
This
there's
is
no retirement.
There's nothing
right,
involved in
nothing
it.
involved.
These are all the part-timers.
Right, and then the flip side to that is at our June 5th meeting, we filled in some of the part-time officers that, you know, so this should make up for, I mean, I guess a couple of them, right?
Well,
And
we'll
then-
have, out of the individuals that we interviewed at that meeting, 2 were hired as full-timers. We have begun one declined to accept moving on to the background phase, decided that he did not want to take a position. And then one has provided us with the initial personal history statement for the background investigation. And again, going back to that June 5th meeting, Officer Mazzari has already begun his field training, and Officer Freeze will again begin her field training on the 17th.
So is there a deficiency now in the roster?
We will be, once Officers Freeze and Mazzari are moved to a full-time status, we will be down 1 person. And that is pending the decision on the lieutenant's position.
Right.
But right now, we're fully staffed until the lieutenant's position
Correct.
is
Yes.
determined.
Excuse me, Detective Sergeant, could you remind the chief, please, that when they have exit interviews, when people leave, commissioner's supposed to be present? Because that was one of the things that we wanted to do last year, because we want to see what's going on and we want to
Yes.
hear what's going on. I just wanted to remind them, because, you know, like I said, they're part-time people, but when you, as long as you brought it up, I would bring up to please
It's one
remind
of
the
the
chief.
reasons I brought it up.
Huh?
It's one of the reasons I brought it up.
Yes, no, we're supposed to be part of the exit interview, or a commissioner is supposed to be there as part of the exit interview.
Ken, did you participate in their
I can
exits out?
explain.
Okay,
yes,
we can hold it, okay, so
yeah.
why don't we, I mean, we can do a quick exec session so that you can give us a brief rundown on circumstances and things of that nature. Hey, Jean,
Hi.
how you feel?
What are you up to?
Reports, why, do you wanna
I
go?
was gonna, when I said I was gonna come tonight, it was because I was gonna be home from work today. But it turns out I gotta go to work today.
Do you wanna do something real quick? Do you have something that you need to bring up to us so that you can go?
No, I'm just saying it might not make it till the end.
It should be, hopefully it'll be a short meeting.
Short
It's,
meeting. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, you
So we'll
were-
discuss that further.
Yeah, we can do a quick exec session and you can give us a quick rundown on those if you don't mind, if you're familiar with that. Okay. So the accommodations and things, you wanna, the chief generally goes through.
We
some
received
through-
a letter of commendation from a resident regarding one of the officers. They were helpful in removing a bat from inside their residence. She actually brought a letter and a tin of cookies for the officers. That was shared amongst everyone.
Pretty rough.
Yes. Oh. We received a letter of, an email and a phone call, excuse me, from a manager of one of the local motels in town. Wanted to thank the members for doing an exceptional job on a daily basis. He specifically then referred to an incident that happened the Thursday prior to June 22nd. And just was appreciative of the officers and what they've done as far as maintaining visibility in that area to deter any criminal activity. Sergeant Koch wrote an email, or wrote a commendation letter to Chief Schneider noting an arrest that officers Fuco and Kraus made on May 18th. On that day, Kraus and Fuco were working a plainclothes detail downtown. While they were walking foot patrol in the Platteville Avenue lot, they observed a male subject seated in a vehicle with the light on in the interior. They watched for several minutes, approached the vehicle undetected, and observed the individual with a narcotic substance in his possession. Upon further investigation, the narcotic substance turned out to be cocaine, and they actually seized approximately 2 ounces of cocaine from that vehicle. The subject was from Boston. He was in New Paltz to actually deliver cocaine to a subject here who resides here in New Paltz. The matter has actually been brought up to the Ulster County District Attorney's Office, so it's open, it's pending up there. So Officer Koch wanted to specifically note and commend Kraus and Fuqua for their tactics and the way they handled the
I
situation.
have a question about that. If it's a SUNY New Paltz student that's involved in a local crime, does that get reported to the dean of the college? Or do they just get, treated just like a resident?
No, we will make notifications to the school when we are dealing with SUNY students. In this particular case, a notification was not made, and in the executive session, if you don't mind, I'll answer that question
Okay.
for you. But normally, when we do make the arrests of SUNY students, we fill it out and we'll make notification to the SUNY Police Department, especially when we're dealing with ongoing problems.
Just a little louder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, we don't
Sorry
have the
about that.
microphones.
I apologize.
So,
We're violating the law.
Oh,
No, because
Why
they're
is
right
it
over
taken?
there.
okay, I'm sorry.
I didn't complain because I'm sitting where I can hear. If I was in the audience, I'd be complaining.
Chief Schneider issued a letter of commendation to Officer Shafrick. He received a commendation letter from Sergeant Butler commending Officer Shafrick on his work with updating the track system within our agency. In the early portion of the year, Officer Shafrick actually took over the updating the system of tracks, but also just addressing all of our computer issues while I was out on injury, and he has actually maintained that responsibility and is doing a phenomenal job with that. But Sergeant Butler wanted to recognize his efforts. He kind of got thrown into the fire, so to speak, with it, and he did an exceptional job transitioning us to a track with the tracks upgrade. So Chief Schneider wrote that letter. There is a letter that Chief Schneider wrote to Officer Fuqua. This is in regards to a CFR medical back in March, on March 24th. Sergeant Butler made the recommendation to Chief Schneider. On the 24th, in the early morning hours, Officer Fuqua was patrolling the post office parking lot. As he pulled into that parking lot, he observed a woman sitting on the bed of a tow, on the frame of the tow truck bed. And the operator was in the process of removing a vehicle, and the bed was actually in motion, and it pinned this young woman in between the actual frame, into the frame of the tow truck. Officer Fuqua actually alerted the operator, the tow truck operator who was on the other side of the vehicle, didn't see this young lady. And if it wasn't for Officer Fuqua's actions, this woman probably would have been crushed. She did sustain severe injuries as a result of all this, but he was there, he provided immediate first aid, and then New Paltz Rescue transported her right away. Defensive action reports. We had 2 defensive action reports that were filed. They were for the same particular incident. The incident itself took place back on June 23rd at about 11 p.m., 10:58 p.m. We received a trespass complaint from one of the local establishments. Officer James was the initial responding officer. During the course of the incident, the subject became combative with the officer. The officer attempted to place him in custody. That subject attempted to resist. An arm bar was used to direct the subject to the ground, where he was taken into custody. During the incident, another member patrolled to that location, happened to patrol upon the location, observed the subject being combative with the initial responding officer, and assisted. So the individual was taken into custody without further incident. No injuries were sustained as a result of that. There was no medical treatment required, nor was there any requested. And again, if I'm not conveying this like I'm supposed to.
That's fine.
Okay.
You're doing
Just
fine.
ask. And that was the only defensive action, those were the only 2 defensive action reports filed, and again, that was for the same particular incident.
Questions, comments?
About?
K-9.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'm just waiting for the detective sergeant to get through with his reports before I make my,
I've concluded, that's done with the, we finished with the defensive action reports, commendations and whatnot.
okay, couple of things. Just out of giggles, I went through the streetlight reports that you do, and I find it very interesting. We file these reports every month, tell these people that the lights are out so that taxpayers don't have to pay it. And I see that we have reports or things that haven't been corrected since January, since December, since April. I mean, it just strikes me as they worry about our 3 cents, but, you know, this is, you know, I don't know why the boards aren't doing anything. I mean, this whole purpose of this report was because unless you report it to them, you pay. So we, you know, I mean, it's not like the officers are going out of their way. They're doing it as they're patrolling. But I'm just saying, why isn't the town and village taking action, you know, to save us some money? I just happen to be reading the report because I don't normally read this report. It's something that I, you know, there's no main
And not even to save the money to get the lights working so
Well,
we
yeah,
can
and-
see.
yeah, one of them's down
and
by
be
you.
safe. Lighting is good.
Yeah. Okay, that
I
was
never
no.
see those reports.
Huh?
I never see those reports.
They go to the town.
That's in, the full report?
The streetlight
A
report.
streetlight report.
I mean, I'd be happy to
The,
say something if I got it.
Maybe you could take my copy.
no, you mean it goes to the supervisor?
Sure.
The streetlight report or the one that's in here?
The one that's in here. The streetlight report
Okay,
is
so
part
it
of the
comes in
packet.
a police commission.
Yeah, it comes in the police
Okay,
commission report.
I don't know that that's detailed enough
Yeah.
to follow up on.
Well, it gives you the location of the pole and the number.
Right.
I'm just saying, you know, it just struck me because I've never really looked at, in all the times I've been sitting here, I've never really looked at that report because it had no bearing to me. I just,
If I do.
we were missing some reports. I had nothing to do. I looked at that report. Okay, that's number one.
Yeah, this is-
Number two, Detective Sergeant, if you could tell whomever that I would like them to mail me electronically a copy of the completed foot patrol report. All they gave me was the June report, and the June report by itself is a kind of a meaningless report. We're missing two pieces. We're missing the June to June, this June to last June, and the year-to-date by month from this year and last year. I mean, this tells us, as a commission, what's going on in terms of...
When you say
foot
June to
patrol.
June, Commissioner, you mean
There's three parts to the report.
comparing the month of
Right.
June 2012 to June 2013?
Right, a comparison of June 2013 to June 2012, and then there's the yearly comparison of 2012 to 2013 by month, up to the months that we have. And those are the other two parts of the report. And again,
And you're missing the year to date.
yeah, you know, those
We
are...
usually get those, right?
Yeah, we usually do.
get
I'm
them.
just...
Yeah, it may be, I don't know, did you run the reports this time? or
No,
did-
I just received this.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it could just be, maybe
No,
probably
I'm
those,
just
yeah.
bringing it up because in my track, because I track foot patrol and bike patrol, because that's an important part of community service.
Yeah.
And I just want to be sure that we're not falling down. And my last little comment is, just did analysis of the chief's budget.
I just have one quick question in regards to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would you rather than be mailed and included, or just emailed to you, or how would you like that?
Well, normally they're included. They
Right.
haven't been included this time.
I'll
I just
make
would like them emailed to everybody or to me so I can update my files that show what when we've gone up and when we've gone down, and then when we've gone down, we can find out why. That's when we find, officers, and explain to the public why they're not seeing officers on the streets. Because foot patrol is a very important part
They
of
are
what we do.
included on every month as well.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
included every month.
You know, not the-
So it may just be I don't know. I think
It was
Mr.
probably,
Rogers
somebody
probably
said, give us the
oversight.
foot patrol, and they didn't look at the former, and they just pushed the one.
Yeah, they
I
probably
just
did
want,
cumulative.
I'm mentioning
Yeah.
it because I know the chief isn't here, and I just, first Detective Sergeant, to have them mail it. The chief's budget right now is 70% under budget. However, to be fair and honest, and so nobody thinks we're going crazy, is a lot of expenses don't come until the end of the year. But it's nice to see that right now, it's 70% under budget, as opposed to being, on budget or whatever, and knowing we have these massive expenses coming at the end of the year. If you look at the budget, you'll see all the expenses that will be hitting at the end of the year as to what's still open as of June. But as of right now, we're 7, which is a good indicator that the chief is keeping within, what he was asked to keep.
Would some of that also include the lags in our personnel as well because of the
No, this is not personnel. This is the chief's budget.
Okay.
Chief's budget doesn't have personnel. We can't get the personnel figures because they're all over the place right now. So I don't know where we stand on personnel, but theoretically,
So this is
we
the
should be.
operational stuff.
Yeah, we should be way under on personnel because they haven't been, because of all the people that they haven't been replacing. So we should be well under personnel. I don't know. I didn't see it. But, no, it's nice to see that the chief is at least keeping track of his responsibility to the budget. Because that's all we can do. We can't control anything else. And that's all I got to say.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a few questions and comments. On the monthly detective case report, we have an incident where a 5-year-old pedestrian, I think, was hit by a car. And I'm deeply saddened when I hear stories like that. And we were talking about it at our May meeting about starting to take the time to keep tabs on these locations where people and children are getting hit by cars. It seems like we just don't really know where it's happening. And, if we can identify these areas, possibly we can improve safety with better signage or, there's all kinds of ways to improve safety. So I don't know what the next step is, but when I read that, I was curious to know where this 5-year-old pedestrian was hit, if you're allowed to say, I don't know. So it doesn't have a location on the report.
It does not. I do not know off the top of my head where the child was struck.
And I don't know, like I know Ariana had brought this up last time, and we were talking about some different ways that we as a community can identify these things. So I'd kind of like to figure out how we're going to take that to the next level with the village board, with town board, maybe taking a map and putting some thumbtacks where we have these problem areas.
We're able to
That's a good idea.
Map where accidents occur that we file reports for. The TRACS program that we utilize for accident reports has a reporting module that enables us to track the location of accidents. It allows us to find out how many accidents we have within a given year. And again, let me preface it though, it's accidents where we file a report. So if a report has been filed for a personal injury, a property damage, or a fatal car accident, then we're able to map those locations.
So is that something that we could possibly, spit out a report,
I
every
can tell you,
quarter or something?
The majority of our accidents happen along the Main Street corridor. We actually use this information when we apply for our 2014 policing traffic safety grants. The majority of our accidents occur on Main Street. And part of the application process entails us going through to see where the majority of the accidents happen, time of day, as well as location. Day of the week, time, and location. And we utilize that information to apply for our 2014 grant.
I had another question for you. Last month, we were discussing checking office buildings. The chief was here, I don't think you were here, and we had a whole conversation about how the officers go into different buildings at night and do random office checks on the doors.
Well, what the officers will do is they'll call out on foot patrol, for example. They may call out on foot patrol at the Cherry Hill Plaza. And as they're walking around, they're checking the doors, front and back. They'll do that at various locations, both in the town and the village, for commercial businesses.
But the way it was discussed last time seemed like it was more a freestanding office building that you guys would go into. Correct me if I'm wrong. And checking different doors.
If you find
Just, you know-
if you find an office building with an unlocked exterior door, we will go inside and check that, and that does happen at times. You know, both within the town and the village. If the exterior is secure, though, we don't have access to that building.
Right, right. So if a lobby door is open and they're doing foot patrol in that area, they might check the lobby door, and if the lobby door is open, they might take the time to check through the offices.
Yes, they will.
Do you mind if we go back to what you were saying about the mapping and what you used to apply for grants for a second? Just because, I mean, we brought up this same issue with the Transportation Implementation Committee, which I'm also the liaison to, and I think you were aware of it. We spoke with DOT about trying to get more. You knew about this, trying to get more signage specifically by the schools, and maybe the flashing yellow lights, which we don't have. And essentially, they told us, "We're sorry, but no." So I was wondering, maybe that kind of information could help give us more teeth, because I don't think we should stop asking just because we were told no once. I mean, if this is something that's, reoccurring, we have data that shows that we need this type of stuff. So I don't know if that's, would that be one of those things we have to foil? I know that's what we talked about last time.
I don't know. It may be something that has to be foiled. I would think it has to be, but again, it's not really hard to get. The program enables you to search under different parameters. We can search property damage only. We can search fatal accidents. We can search personal injury accidents.
Yeah.
But again, it's only the reports where it will only give you the information for accidents that we respond to and take a report on.
But even that would be helpful. Absolutely. I'm gonna.
And that's similar to the conversation we had about the bicycle report.
Right.
So I would presume those two could be combined. You weren't here for that, but there were questions about whether or not we could provide reports for bicycle incidents that we have. And I talked to the chief about it because I talked to Bill Weinstein.
Yeah, the chair of the bicycle pedestrian committee.
And I believe it was, in fact, the chief said that they would, in fact, have to foil the information so that the person's personal data and all of that stuff is not.
That would be redacted.
Right.
All of that would be redacted.
I mean, we don't want that anyway.
No, but it's not hard to get that information. That's actually something.
But it's a FOIL request in order to have, okay.
Just as a point, Randall, if, let's say the village and the town wanted that information, would it still be a FOIL request?
I don't know.
I don't know, but
maybe not for the town, but probably for the village. I would think.
No, because I'm just saying, it's important information to have, and I don't want to see it hung up in technicalities and foils and all this other stuff. I mean, even if it meant that a commissioner asked for it. Yeah. That's all I'm saying, because we don't have to foil for that. It's under the law, we're entitled to it. I just don't want to see what you guys are saying hung up in a whole mess. Well, it's got a foil and it's got to go through this. I don't know how the whole foil process works.
Right.
But I'd rather just see it get the information.
Why don't we do this? Is it in our best interest to make this part of our monthly report for our commission meetings?
Can we request that?
I'm not going to answer that.
No, I'm just saying, I don't know how large it's going to be. I mean, if it's like 6,000 pages,
For the man who wants to
no,
get rid
but
of
I mean, if we
I
can,
will, what I can
I
use,
throw it out there, and I don't know if I'm right about this, but perhaps there's a sense of the commission that it might be helpful for us to have.
See, if I may, Randall, I think what Ariana, correct me if I'm wrong, please, lady, and Amy are looking for is not that Harry got into a bike accident on Middletown Road, but that 3 bike accidents happened on Middletown Road.
Right.
That 4 people got hit. So to get
if you'd like, what I can do is I'll search the parameters and I can just have the chief report back to you what we can give you, and then you guys can make a determination.
because it's more important to me to have the statistics. Well, you know how I am.
Right,
I'm looking at the statistics than to see 1 month that nobody got hurt. Well, that's fine, but I want to see what has gone on up to that month. I don't want to bypass saying, that's why I said as a monthly report, I don't see it, but as a special report to the town board and to the village, particularly, because I would think most of that happens in the village.
Could we get some kind of an accident report where it could be pedestrian accidents, bicycle accidents, car accidents?
I'd have to look. I don't know specifically what the search parameters are. I know you can search property damage versus personal injury versus fatal. I don't know if there is a parameter set in there for pedestrian or bicyclists. And again, I also don't know, when I did it for the report, I just queried for a year total and then had to go through everything and count it out.
You know, I would
So I
just
don't
like
know
to see
how
something that
simple it
says,
would
for the
be.
last 6 months, we had 13 bike accidents, and this place, this place, this place, we had 23 pedestrian involved. I don't care about the, whatchamacallit, the accidents between cars.
But if tracks can do that, and
But
it's a.
people that get hurt.
I care about people in cars that get hurt.
And date and time on
Yeah,
that.
but it-
Like,
And
like
the
for
number,
example,
right? The number of-
Number
I have a
of-
friend who
yeah.
lives on
Residents
Shivertown
do-
Road, and she told me that there's always accidents on Shivertown Road and 32.
Right.
And so I started paying attention to that. Then you brought it up,
Yep.
and I keep paying attention
Okay,
to that, and I
I-
pass by and I see an accident there, and I'm thinking to myself, why does this have to keep happening?
It's
Right.
a 32 in
Because
Shivertown.
Right, why can't we get a new sign?
Yeah.
What I
Because
don't know
32
Or
is,
put a stoplight instead of a yellow light?
the only,
I don't-
Because 32
know.
is a state road, Amy, and we can't
I
control
know,
it.
I know, but it-
No, I understand what you're saying. It's just that I'm more concerned about, like you were saying, the pedestrians, the school kids, or whatever. If we have a problem, and, you know, I don't want to start a whole, you know, I mean, but I don't want to start a whole, you know, new page, you know, where we have to keep, you know, every quarter, every 6 months, or on request, if we can get that report and bring it to the town and the village and say, look, you know, we know we can't do anything, or even to the DOT for crying out loud.
Right.
Because it's
then we
going to get a
have
lot
hard
worse.
evidence.
Yeah, it's going
I
to get a
don't
lot
know if we
worse.
even need
Let
it
us know
monthly. I
what-
think we need it to
Quarterly?
make a point that we're
Exactly.
talking about right now, and if
So
we can
make-
get
Over the
something
last
to
year,
put in,
You're right.
then we don't, it doesn't
And then
need to
let
be
us know
generated,
next month.
you know, unless you guys want it, of course.
Let us know
No,
next month
I mean,
what
like,
it is,
I
and
see
then
going
we
to the
can figure
DOT,
out.
like we went with the light, with the special
How-
light in the
how
school,
it's gonna-
and say, excuse me,
go.
here's the problem, you don't want to help us, you don't want to let us put up signs, here's the
Okay.
statistics, we had 33 accidents, bicycle and pedestrian accidents on this corner by the school. Don't tell us you don't want to do it and make a big stink to the state.
Well, I
mean,
was-
that's the kind of information you need
Yeah.
to achieve a goal of safety.
Okay, so Rob is gonna, Detective Sergeant is going to, Detective Sergeant is going to figure out what he can provide to us, and then hopefully we can get the statistical data so that we can then present that, basically kind of like the light report.
Yeah.
That's basically
I'm
what
hoping
it
that
is.
I'd be able to, similar to the way the defensive act, like this, the call for service, I'm hoping that it generates it, like, what I had to do is kind of go through it. I'm hoping
Right.
that there is a way I can generate it so that it comes across similar to when we do out the calls for service in the search engine, where it give you a date, a time, and a location, and then you
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
Can I just ask, I'm not familiar with the track system, could you just take a moment?
No, not a problem.
To review that?
Trax is the, it's a state system that we utilize for accident reports, tickets. You can utilize it for a number of different things. You can use, there's forms built into it.
And does it run off the state's computers, like their servers?
No, what happens is we sign on we fill out a use and dissemination agreement. We uploaded the program itself to our server. It's on all of our workstations. It's actually in all of our mobile data terminals in the vehicles as well. We write tickets using the program, and it's filled out electronically. There's a scanner in each of our patrol cars, so when we do make a vehicle and traffic stop, it helps expedite. You scan the license, you scan the registration, the information's auto-populated in. You fill out the date, the time, the location, the offense. You electronically sign that ticket, and you issue that summons. It then, at the completion of an officer's tour, their summonses and accident reports and any other forms that they may generate using Trax are uploaded from the cars to the server via the workstations in the station. And then our server is set to digitally transmit that information on a daily basis to Albany.
Okay, so it's a standalone application from PD Manager, for example. Does it integrate with that at all?
No, it does not. So it's just, it's its own program.
Personnel committee?
I still have one last
Oh, okay,
thing, I'm sorry.
No, go
Can
ahead.
can I say it?
Yeah, yeah.
I did have a question about the overtime breakdown. I mean, I guess a lot of people are going on vacation now, so, you know, whoever can work, you want to try to get to work, but when I see people getting 40 hours and 66 hours of overtime in 1 month, seems like a lot.
Let me just pull that.
I mean, compared to the other months, from what I've seen.
True. What I would say, though, is this month, a lot of our overtime was shift coverage overtime. We are still really 3 officers down. We also moved Officer Halstead on a temporary basis into the detective division, so that accounts for even some of it. He's not in the patrol mix anymore. So all 3 of our tours are
shift
extremely light.
Being down
And
low.
that is part of the reason, so that's the reason the hours in the shift coverage are up. Again, I don't see these on a month, I see them, I'm just starting to see them now, and since I'm kind of transitioning into roles, I know this, that the 238 is a little high for, it's a little bit higher than the normal, but it's because of the fact that we are we're
No,
down
and I
as many
understand that.
officers.
I'm just curious, and I mean, I see the officers that did get the overtime are really terrific.
The one figure you're looking at there is in regards to communications. And I have, right now, and I supervise these, we have 3 full-time dispatchers, and I only have 2 part-time dispatchers. So we are really struggling to make shift coverage with communications. We just started
Right.
one of the individuals that we interviewed and hired on the June 5th meeting.
Right, who
just
was a
begun her
dispatcher
training.
before.
She began her training. Our hope is that that will solve some of that problem. But that particular line that you're referring to is related to dispatch. The other one is below that. The 41 is related to communications. And again, that's all shift coverage overtime. As well as, let's see, there are a couple of, again, our dispatches are all, I'm looking at now, are all on the higher side for that reason.
When personnel budgets are
That's
proposed,
time and a
is
half,
there,
or 2 times.
No,
is there an allowance
Time
made
and a
for
half.
anticipated overtime?
Without
These kinds
step.
of, or any kind of circumstance?
That's how
I believe the
screwed
chief
up
budgets for
everybody.
overtime, what we are experiencing at this point, no, I don't think you can prepare for it. I mean, we right now have only 2 part-time dispatchers that are available to us. One of them, both have full-time employment outside of the agency.
Right.
Actually, one that is our clerk, who then also does work as a dispatcher. And the other
else.
is, has a
So that you
full-time
don't know.
job, so it's been a difficult. Again, I'm hoping we're starting, we're getting near completion on our backgrounds for the hirees of June 5th, so hopefully that will solve some of this, resolve some of this.
Is that
Let's see what-
Anything else?
and it just resigns his place. And if somebody stole the car,
Personnel
comes down?
committee, does personnel committee have,
Well,
should we do that in our executive
Yeah.
session? Okay, so
Well-
we'll shift that to
Okay.
there, because we're gonna need to do a quick one anyway. Clark Point, quickly, we had, Ira and I presented to the planning board on the 24th of June, the figures that we had all shared with you guys, basically like $12 and a half million dollars.
13 million.
For.
Minimum 13 million.
Yeah.
I keep saying minimum because we don't have actual figures, so it's minimum 13 million.
For that, so they now have their numbers, and then we had a meeting, what was the date of that? We had a meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago, with the organization CGR, and they are tasked with looking at, coming up with the set of numbers for the planning board. I
Right.
guess, so that they can begin to do comparisons with what Park Point has submitted and what the town figures out that it thinks that it needs. So for now, they came and asked for some information that they should get from the planning office and the town office. So they're getting that information, and then we provided them additional information about calls and things of that nature. So they're digging through a lot of data that Ira, I think, sleeps with and has at home, because he takes and crunches all of this stuff. So that's where we are with respect to that, and I think we're pretty much done with Park Point as far as this commission. Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing.
The only reason I bring that point up is because of this investigation that's being done into our figures. I would personally like to see an investigation done into Park Point's figures. I mean, they came and asked us, how we come up with our figures and blah, blah, blah. We explained it to them. We try to explain to the people that you can't take 12,000 calls. You got to take the number of calls in Zone 6 and Zone 7 and use that as your base, because you're going to have 800 people walking down that street. And in Zone 8, if we have three fights a weekend, adding 700 unsupervised, it's like, it just drives me crazy. I'm not saying my figures are right or whatever, but they're a lot more reasonable than taking, well, you had 12,000 calls, and of course, if you take this and you take over their budget, it only comes to $17 an hour. What are you people? So I think we're going to have more fight. That's my personal opinion, Randall. I mean,
well, if they call us back, we'll respond to whatever it is that they request. But as of now, I believe we've responded to their initial request, and it's up to us to wait for them to ask us if they need anything else.
Ira.
Yes.
So in their initial request, you turned over what Ira's analysis was.
Yes.
The one he bumped up.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
And so it sounds to me like there might be some feeling, like if you brought in somebody from Rochester, or if you brought in somebody from Syracuse, but somebody who doesn't live here in New Paltz with us and doesn't understand that this is going to be filled with SUNY students,
right.
And this is going to, and they're going to, exactly what Ira said, they're going to file down the street to the bars, and that it's a segment, and like you said, the zones. So I want to ask you that when they come to planning and town board to say, you need one officer, and I need to start my mantra, that I can count on you to say, no.
Absolutely.
You need to sit down with us.
Absolutely.
And you need to hear the New Paltz perspective, because you can't look at it as an objective outsider, because it's not as simple as putting up an apartment building in the middle of Manhattan.
Well, you know what? One of the things that, when we sat down with him, one of the concerns that I raised to him is I said, you can't come here and take a textbook or an industry standard
Right.
and apply it to New Paltz.
Right.
I said, we have our police officer, our chief of police, who is tasked with public safety, and the request was, how many officers does he need in order to accommodate this facility?
Mm-hmm.
And his response to the supervisor was he would need 3 to 4. So, when they were talking to us, it was like, well, the industry report from the Chiefs Association from says it's, you should only need
Well, that's okay. I'll
X.
buy into that if they can give me that Chiefs report, and they can show me which ones of them have a state university that's considered a party school.
In a
And then
village.
I'll take those numbers into consideration and throw the rest out, because otherwise it's not realistic.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, it's the same. It's almost the same conversation we had as it relates to the calls. And one of the things that Ira and I talk about frequently is that we were not making judgment as to the efficacy of the project.
Right.
We were. The chief was asked the question, how many officers are you going to need if this comes in? And I said, the planning board should know what that's going to cost the town, so that when they sit down and do their analysis, they can say, okay, this is not gonna match with what you're saying. But then they also went into the calls, and we had to explain to them that calls here are not just calls. And then the other thing that I don't know if they're going to factor in, I don't know, I passed a link or an article to everybody just a couple of weeks ago that Albany has provided additional police resources and funds
right, good point.
to Kingston, Poughkeepsie, and Newburgh. Now, if you get those funds from those three jurisdictions, let me tell you, if you're a criminal, you're not going to go where you're going to get extra police source, and we're smack dab in the middle of all that mess. So they're going to come to some place who's not going to have all those extra patrols, and that means our officers are going to have to deal with whatever this is going on in Poughkeepsie, Kingston, and Newburgh, moving here with the college, and then so there's this whole thing that doesn't quite compute in my mind just yet as to what and how they're arriving at those costs, and whether or not those costs are in fact the true cost based on the people's experiences living here, which is what you're saying.
Exactly.
And it's hard for them to say what works in Rochester is going to work in New York City.
I just think it needs to be an interactive process before they lay down the numbers to the planning board as this is it, this is industry standard, like you said. It needs to be an interactive process.
And I believe what I was told was that they are working, this group is working to help the planning board come up with its set of numbers that may be totally different than what Park Point may have come up with. That's my understanding, is that's what, yeah. So we'll see, and I presume we will get another call, once they submit the stuff to the planning board, but I think we've satisfied their initial request.
Also, and I just want to add this, because I think what they're going to try to do is knock down those numbers intentionally.
Yeah.
Even though it's ballpark, like you said, we did ballpark, it's not specific, but probably, like Ira sleeping with the numbers, because he has more documentation than the original submission. Right?
I've got
right? I mean, that's what
Gene, I've got the backup to my figures and how I arrived at it.
You do.
And it's based upon the contract, and it's not based, and it's based upon the overhead, which Park Point doesn't think exists. I mean, we don't have to pay benefits. We don't have to pay the retirees. We don't, you're paying an officer, according to them, $16 an hour. I don't know where they're getting their figure, but that's what the figure was in the FD. And yeah, I've got the backup to how I came up with what the percentage. Remember, you went on that, and I adjusted it for that.
Right.
And my figures, my figures based upon a reasonable increase. I mean, they say, well, there's not going to be any increase in salaries. I mean, that's their thing. I put in basic, and and if you saw what it is, and it's got things that I can't even plan for, like the Affordable Health Care Act. That's supposed to raise premiums, by 200%. I didn't budget for that. I just, Although
it did get put off for a year, so.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but we got 25 years down the road where, we don't know what's going to happen. And
the only thing I was going to say is, I know the chief came up with that figure of 4, and one of the things, this is just my own 2 cents, and I spoke with the chief about this after that one meeting, is people have to, the argument also, or people need to realize or educate that it's not about having those 4 officers are not going to be on duty at the same time. The idea is that he's coming up with that number because of past days and
because of 3
shifts.
Yeah.
That 4, out of that 4, maybe you'd be lucky to get 2 of the 4 that are going to be working at the same time to supplement what we already have.
And it's 1 per shift, right? That's my understanding.
Well,
1 per shift and an extra to
body
cover
to help
all that.
supplement
Right.
that.
That's why it's 4.
and we're going to have an extra 800 people here during the day, which we don't supposedly, according to the college, because they're not bringing in any new people. But we don't have these extra 800, and I round up because, Yeah, but they're gonna be here all during the day and night. So that's why when the figure was 4, it's 1 for each shift and a fill-in.
Yeah. And again, I'm sorry, just going to what Councilwoman Bellucci said. This is unique. New Paltz is unique, and I know the chief has said this on a number of occasions. There aren't many SUNY schools that are situated in a village that are also 20 minutes away from three small cities. You know, you go up to north of Plattsburgh, where I went to school, it's Plattsburgh, that's it. And, you know, you go to Cortland, it's the same thing. You know, here you have a college in a community that is 20, 15 minutes away from three smaller cities.
Yeah. And wasn't SUNY rated like the third biggest party school or something?
Three smaller cities that just got extra money from the state to beef up their police patrols to help combat crime, which, you know, cockroaches, you turn the light on and they move someplace else. It's the same.
And with the 4 officers, you got to remember.
Did you?
I just wanted a point of information.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do officers get paid the same amount if they're working a night shift as opposed to a day shift? Is that?
We don't have shift differential.
Like I tell everybody, just think about this situation. We have a lot of problems, or I shouldn't say a lot of problems, but we have problems down in the bar area, obviously. There are fights, there are patrol officers, and that's what we have now. Add 800 more kids, and what happens is instead of 1 fight, let's say, a night, we're going to have 2, maybe 3 fights a night. That's going to bring our current officers in there, and then what happens to the people, the poor person who lives out in the town and says, hey, somebody's breaking into my house. What do we do?
May I?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with you about the bars, but I think that, I'm sure you know this, and anybody who spends any time talking to people in the village will know that the problems also exist on any street that leads back to the college from downtown.
Yeah.
And all of the streets on the other side of Main Street where there are student rentals. So even to talk about it as concentrated downtown in the bar area is not, is not taking account of
Into the other stuff.
how
The spill-off.
widespread
Right.
the problems.
The spill-off.
It's not spill-off. That's where they live.
Yeah, well, I
So
mean, they
they
go,
come and
right.
go.
Yeah,
They go, and
absolutely
it's one
right.
of the things that we said, it's one of the things that we said to them. I mean, we said, you know, they may go to the bar and cause the problems, but oftentimes they're walking home, and the next day, because it's not always that night, people wake up and their mailbox has been bashed in, or their lawn furniture is missing, or they find some bodily whatever on
Or
their...
even when we ever come to terms with the issue of what I've heard the police refer to, the chief refer to, as moving noise.
Moving
Yeah.
noise.
Which has now become essentially a 5, 6, maybe even 7 night a week problem. And it isn't the same as calling because there's a party house.
Yeah.
That's the point of it.
Yeah.
They're gonna be moving now even farther to Park Point.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, they're driving.
I say put some bars in Park Point so they can stay home. They're right there, they're safer, they don't have to hit the streets, and they can just go.
Yeah, but that's not where the 18-year-olds.
I have a question about Park Point.
Yeah.
I was wondering if now is a time in the town's negotiations with Park Point, if they do end up getting this, that we could make demands. Like, for example, in the dorms, we have RAs, we have, you know, adults that are concerned with kids doing the wrong thing and, you know, misbehaving and hurting each other and doing drugs and drinking a lot and, you know, causing a problem. And, you know, this Park Point, I think it calls for 1 part-time security officer for all the buildings, just 1 person part-time. So, you know, I'm hoping this thing doesn't go through, but if for some reason it did, I'm wondering if in the negotiation is the time to make demands. We want 24-hour security
I
guard.
think they already have.
They already have that.
They do.
Yeah, that's part of the plan. I just saw what Park Point is offering the students. That is some classy room.
Yeah. it's-
I never saw it before until today.
Okay,
Whoa.
okay, so, yeah. So that's the Park Point. The Technology Committee,
It's you. I have a comment after you're done, but that's you.
Okay. Well, the committee met at the police department on July 3rd. President or myself, Ira, the chief, the detective sergeant, and May Morales, who is the town's IT specialist. And we had a discussion about the existing computer system that they use. It's a software application called PD Manager that was acquired in 1999. It's several years out of date regarding upgrades and updates. My understanding is that the department had a subscription at one point for updates and technical support, but that hasn't been funded or purchased. So we're kind of dealing with an outdated system. Equally important is that we're also dealing with hardware that's marginally adequate for the job.
82, 86 machines.
Yeah, 286 Commodore 64s. The server was updated in 2009 and seems to be pretty adequate in terms of its hardware configuration, but the network package, the Microsoft 2003 server, is no longer supported by Microsoft, which means when it goes down, not if. It may be difficult to get that back up and running. So it seemed that, at least according to the detective sergeant and the chief, that the application provides adequate operational functionality at this point. I know that it's not adequate for IRIS purposes. We do have an appointment to meet with a representative from a company called Police Pro. They'll be sending somebody up on the 24th of July. So we're going to meet with them and kind of see what their system might be able to offer. We talked a little bit about developing a formal procedures and policy manual for and maintenance logs for the system to try to keep it running as best we can, and also to look at possibly a different process for a backup and security of the backup compared to the way it's being done now. That's it.
No.
Do you have remote backup yet? Are you hosting it off-site?
It's being done locally with a hard drive, tape drive.
Okay, but it's off-site. It's not
That's
at
the
the
problem.
police department.
It's on site.
It's on site.
And the tapes are
Oh,
remaining on
that's
site, so that's...
I could get it for you really cheap.
Well, we talked about swappable hard drives. It's one of the plans. Swappable hard drives for backup that could be removed from the
I have
premises.
a
And you
really
rotate
cheap
it, yeah.
service, I'm telling you. It's
You're talking about like an off-site, like a cloud service.
Yeah.
Well, one of the
It needs to be, I'm sorry,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
no.
It needs to be looked at carefully. You know, I've looked at it for several years for my own business. And there are potential issues. I mean, personally, I'd be a little bit cautious. It's a new game. And like in a lot of new games and industries, it's going to shake down in a certain way. I, for one, would have to see a lot of support for the credibility and viability of a particular company's ability to provide this service well over the long run. So I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just not convinced personally that it's better than an in-house service, as long as that backup service is a secure service.
And then I would also presume that some of that concern is the type of data and information that you all collect, because it's for criminal investigations, and I mean, you know, so the more close at hand it is, the better, I would presume, for you guys.
That's
right?
what we did, that's one of the
It's
things.
it's a vulnerable system. Anytime you're over public networks, no matter how the network is structured, there's vulnerabilities.
Do you have a sense of cost that
No, we don't. I mean, we could get a sort of order of magnitude idea. You know, I'm thinking somewhere in the $100,000, $120,000 range. But it really would need to be looked at, because there are costs besides the hardware and software, training, you know, time for training, the salaries associated with that. So
Right.
it's the kind of thing that probably takes a year to transition into.
so it would
Probably
have to be all at once?
I don't think it can be all at once. You know, one of the things we need to look at with any potential new vendor is how that data gets transferred and integrated into a new system. I think the reality is you have to run two systems for a while, no matter what, because there's a certain sort of break in trial and error period as you're doing things. So there's a lot more information that we have to gather.
Yeah.
And then it's hypothetical to the extent that funding is always going to be,
Right.
you know, the game changer.
Right, right.
But we are moving forward to try to get as much information as we can in the meantime.
Yeah, and I know, you know, and I think Ira will back me up on this, is as we go through, as we jump back to Park Point as it relates to data collection, the stuff that we should be able to generate to show what you do, how you do it, where your issues are, we can't do that. And
Right.
that, you know, it's not something about making sure that, you know, we're not wasting money and you're doing what you're supposed to. It's about data so that people can make decisions about how you police our community and the costs associated with policing that community and how you spend your time.
Exactly.
So that when we get questions like Park Point, well, you know, I don't think you need 4 officers, we can run a sheet for Ira and he can look and say, you know, we got 25 officers, we had 4 calls for 16 fights, and we've had to process X number of people. And so, I mean, that's the importance to having a system that can spit the data and isn't done manually, which is a waste of everybody's time and effort and energy.
I think the consensus at that meeting pretty much was that even though this may be working for now, its days are numbered. And we could either be proactive and not
Yeah.
get caught with a crashed system that can't be brought back, or try to be proactive, or we can be reactive once it all goes south, and then it's going to be a real problem. And a very
how-
expensive problem.
How will those things integrate with, now the cars, are they running on that similar computer?
No, the cars are, I mean, what I've asked the chief and what we're looking to try to do is come up with a program or a procedure where we will replace 1 computer car every year. So that means we're at least staying on top of it. We have, I think, 8 or 9 marked units. So the idea that each marked unit would get a new computer every 9 years, which is, that's a long period of time, but, you know, it's probably, yeah, I do it any, you know, if you would, I think we couldn't incur the cost of doing more than 1 a year. And so that is something we're going to look to try to do. I know that the chief in planning 2014 budget, we've talked about that, is making sure that we have 1 new computer purchase. We took seized asset accounts and we did purchase 2 new ones because we're trying to get on that cycle. So I don't know how, I don't think it'll affect it that, because those are actually newer computers, but our workstations are a little older, some of them are a little older, so I think that plays into it. And I know that Commissioner Kirk in May had talked about the fact that you'd have to even, there'd be a need to replace the server with any new RM, with any new record management system. You're going to have to replace the server as a whole.
Now, are you guys planning on investigating potential grants from DOJ or something, you know, I mean, because it's a huge amount of money.
Sure.
And I would wonder if there are grants that perhaps are available for system type upgrades within police departments to perhaps lighten the load for the town. So if that can be part of, and I'm not saying you have to get them all, but if there's a sense when you look, if there's certain things like that to help defray some of the cost, and we can.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know how to do that. Like, I mean, I would assist if somebody
Okay.
else could
Okay.
lead on that, for sure.
Well, who works? You do the systems, right? So
I
why don't
do a
you-
little bit of the systems, I do a little bit of the grants.
Yeah, so
I think
if you can look into, I mean, I don't know if you know,
It just depends. I mean, you know, with the grants, you just have to be checking and seeing what RFPs are out there, and you hope to time it at the right time, or you know, you hope that your need is right there when the grant's available.
Yeah.
So you know, I think once we have an idea of how we want to move, then I think in the direction, then I think we can try and look at it. We may be able to find something through DCJS, the feds. New York State Emergency Management, you never know. But I think, you know, once we define the need, then we may be able to look and see where we can go. But I agree, it's probably what we're going to have to look at.
Yeah, yeah. Howard, you,
Yeah, just wanted to remind everybody, the chief is down in Orlando looking at the computer show, and he's supposed to be coming back to us with programs, computer hardware, you know, as part of this whole thing. So-
Okay, but I do have a suggestion.
Absolutely.
Considering within the month, I'll be starting the budget process with the supervisor, so if you want me to take into consideration the number of monitors, the size of the server space that you want to replace. I mean, if you give me all the specs, because listening to, you said you and the chief talked about it, about the 2014 budget. That would not be the direction I want going. But I want to have the information when I'm working on the budget with the supervisor to see what else I can plan for.
The only thing we've talked about is trying to create a cycle for the laptop computers in the cars.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's the only thing we've talked
That's
about.
a great idea. Nobody's gonna say no to that. But how is it that the software that hasn't been upgraded since '99?
I think it was purchased in '99.
Oh, okay.
There were some years of upgrades. I
Okay.
didn't get a lot of details. I'm not sure that information was readily available.
Okay.
But basically what the chief told me is this, that this company is moving towards a web-based sort of application where you're working off of their servers instead of having things in-house.
Okay.
So it sounds like they haven't been investing in their
in
their
situation.
local type systems. So the R&D hasn't been there, and maybe there haven't been many updates in the recent past. I don't know, but it sounds like it's a platform that they're moving away from.
Okay, because I can't imagine that, but I haven't been here all these years.
The chief said, Gene, that he hasn't been paying them for updates because the updates have no purpose or serve no purpose to the system. The updates that they were making, it was, I'm just using my own thing, instead of a green light, there was a red light or something like that. He didn't want to pay $3,000-$4,000
Okay,
every
so it was usable in
It's usable,
original
and it's,
state.
yeah, it's usable in the state it's now. It's not like it's not usable, it's usable, it's just not efficient.
yeah.
And it can't give us information that we're all of a sudden deciding, gee, it would be nice to have.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking for that information is that maybe it won't just be the police department. You know,
Yeah.
because like other people have old equipment too. And so maybe it's something I can look into.
So maybe what we can do is ask May to put together kind of a budget, kind of an informal proposal based on your current system or any upgrades you'd want to make in terms of its versatility.
Would you-
And, yeah.
I mean, I just want to clarify, so I know we talked.
Wait.
No?
With the presumption of new software.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's-
Of
Oh,
course.
yeah, that's,
Well,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
part of the issue. I know in talking to May, the software that we go to, whatever RMS we're going to utilize, that will dictate some of the choices she would want to make with the server and how we, and which way we would go. 'Cause some programs can do a multitude of tasks. For example, the one we talked about briefly with Impact, you can do a lot with that RMS program. It's not just like PDMAT. There's so many more options with it.
Yeah.
So I think she had said in talking to her afterwards that would be part of it, is defining where we want to go and then moving to that and figuring out how server and whatnot.
Yeah. Gene, what was your time frame to get that information?
Well, the budget worksheets went out yesterday. Because I was here when they went out, so I think, Susan, we're gonna start the budget next month. August.
yeah, that's about right. That's when they usually
So-
start it, Gene.
So if we had something in 3 or 4 weeks, would that be too late?
No,
That would work out?
Moving
Anything
right
else?
along.
Anything else?
I have nothing else to
No,
add.
that was good. That was, it's one of the things that we've talked about for a long time, so it's kind of good to see that it's finally getting going, and everybody's sort of on board and looking to perhaps get it done, because it is outdated. Old business. PBA lieutenant contract. My understanding is there is a meeting in August for PBA, and I don't know what the lieutenant contract, I mean, I presume when they get around to it, or
Well, I
don't know
met
how they-
with Councilwoman Gucci and Supervisor Zimmett and Councilwoman Brown yesterday. So-
Okay, great, so that's moving. Great. Any questions on that? No? Okay, new business. We have one item, and that is request for seized assets.
Yes.
Okay.
The chief was looking to get the commission's approval to expend up to no more than $20,000 to purchase a new, or actually purchase an administrative car, new for our agency, but going through the auction, a used vehicle that we will then utilize for a new administrative car. It would be to replace the Audi that was sold off at auction, and be utilized as an administrative car.
Could you just elaborate what an administrative car is?
It would be a car used by, in this particular case, it'd be a car used by whoever is the detective sergeant, or actually, if we go with an it would be used by lieutenant. That's lieutenant's position, I guess, is the best way to put it. I'm trying to put it without not knowing, but it's the old car, the car that was used by the prior lieutenant was sold at auction. This would be there to replace that. But even if a lieutenant's position doesn't move forward, then there are, it would be used as by the detective sergeant or detective. The chief is looking at a couple of different vehicles. He's hoping to find some sort of hybrid SUV type vehicle and have it, then that vehicle would go to the detectives because of all the equipment that they carry.
Right.
But he's looking to get the permission of the commission to expend up to $20,000.
Is it equipped like a patrol car is?
It has a light and siren
Siren.
package. Would not have an in-car camera system. Would not have a computer system. Which is the light.
And my question, okay.
Yes.
And my question, did you
Yes.
calculate how much money we have left in our
Yes.
So because your request is for up to $20,000, which makes me wonder, because I know that you put in a request for updated computers, so we need to make sure that we're not
Yeah.
going over budget for something that you don't have in the kitty. So,
Right now, the seized asset account has $38,559 in it.
okay,
The bookkeeper is waiting for the town board to make the transfer of $16,744 for the computers. But she hasn't got the authorization, which is why the account is $38,000. That'll leave a balance of $21,815. So you take the $20,000 out of it, we still got, not a lot of money, but we still have $1,800 in the account.
and how often is that replenished?
Only when we
We're actually
do-
waiting we have not received yet. We are due about another $8,000 from a seizure that we had in 2011. The U.S. Marshal Service is a little bit behind. They transitioned into a different program, but we are due $8,000 from them from a 2011 seizure that was approved a while ago. We just have not received the money.
Okay. So if we give authorization for this, you have $1,000 or $1,800 left. Do you know if there's anything on the horizon that might take precedence over replacing the car?
There was $16,000 in computers.
$16,743 for cameras, in-car cameras or something you submitted?
Yes, something,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said computers. Yes, the car cameras.
Car
yes.
cameras. Yeah.
Cameras.
Yes. We had looked at, we have to replace a number of
Yeah.
car camera systems.
How much is that?
So the three that we're replacing are about 16,000.
Okay, can you remember to put that in writing and ask the town board to authorize the movement of the money?
You know, I was gonna make a
Yeah, no,
motion
I'll do that as a.
that the chair send a
Yeah,
letter
I'll send an
confirming.
email.
Yeah.
Requesting, so the chair will entertain a motion to affirm the chief's request to use $20,000 out of seized assets to purchase an administrative automobile.
So moved.
Is there a second?
You need an answer tonight?
Is there a second?
Well, I can't, I made the motion.
I'm not getting a second.
I'd like to talk about
Okay, well, can we get
I
a
think-
second?
Second it for
And then we'll
discussion.
open it, and then I'll open the floor for discussion. So, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. The floor is now open for discussion. Commissioner
it. You need an
Perrine.
answer tonight? I think the concern is there something in the horizon? And I just want to clarify about the 16,000 that you were talking about.
What-
So it's 20 plus 16?
No, no, there's $38,000 right now sitting in the seized asset account. There's a request for transfer of $16,000 from seized assets to pay for the cameras. But that hasn't been put through the town board yet, which is why there's $38,000 in there. Once that is put through, because again, remember, the board makes the transfer, but a seized asset request by the chief can't be denied under the, you know, it's a crazy situation. So they'll put that through. Once they put that through, it leaves a balance of $21,000. This chief's asking for $20,000 out of seized assets, and remember, that includes part of that $21,000 that's in there includes the $11,000 we got for getting rid of the other car.
And technically, we don't have the authority to deny the request because it's, what is it, the law?
It's the law.
I think it's the law. So, I mean, he can make the request. He's not spending our money. It is money he is entitled to use for law enforcement and to improve and upgrade and so on and so forth. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want to deny it. I'm just wondering, is there a better way to spend $20,000 on equipment, different equipment? Nothing against the car.
No, if I could just also add.
I'm just talking, I want to understand.
Just so you,
That's
and
fine. That's
right-
fine.
basically, right now, we are down that one administrative car. We have created a temporary position for a detective. So currently, the car that I was utilizing is now being utilized by the second detective. We had 2 school cars. One of them is at Tom's Repair it had to be towed off 9W yesterday, and we've had major issues with it. The other school car is now being utilized by the officer that's in training. So I am equipped my minivan with lights and sirens, and I'm tooling around in my man van. But just to get you to where the chief is coming from is he's looking, you know, again, there is a transition. He's hoping or anticipating that some decision or some transition will be made with regards to a second administrative position. So he wants to have that vehicle there, and that it's there. And the other thing is he will, and I apologize if I misspoke, he's not looking to spend 20. It's to exceed no more than 20. He
Yeah.
is going to do everything in his power to. He's looking at auctions. He's looking at this would be a second-hand vehicle. But he's looking at going to auction similar to and picking it up a vehicle similar to what he has now, which that Ford, which was picked up on auction.
So, do you think he would object? Well, he's asking for 20. I mean,
No, he's asking for a maximum of
maximum
20.
20.
Right.
And then he has to come forward to the town board with what he wants, like with the thing, it came to 17,000, the town board authorizes the transfer, then he'll bring in the bill for whatever it is, 18,000, 17,000.
Yeah.
Also remember about the future, Steve, the seized assets are very restrictive, as you know, in what they can be used for. I mean, you can't just, like, you can't use them for payroll, you can't use them for
No, I
training.
know,
you know. So I mean, down the road is a very difficult thing to come up with because it's so defined as to what you're allowed to by law
Well,
spend the money
even
on.
equipment now.
Huh?
Is there a better way to spend $20,000 on equipment now?
Can I ask a
Not
question?
down the road.
It may seem silly, but and there may be a good reason why you want an unidentifiable Prius, although I don't think it'll actually have the pickup if you have have to chase someone, okay, because what is it? Like 4-cylinder?
No, he's looking, again, he's looked.
He's looking for a used car.
No,
Yeah.
I know what I mean.
No,
He's looking
he's not
ideally
looking for a
their-
patrol car. He's
Well,
looking for,
Well, that's my question. Why wouldn't we lease another police vehicle? And then if something gets cracked up, smashed up, you still have a full rotation right there. I don't know.
according to the chief, and he's not here to answer.
He's
Deb,
not here to defend himself.
Yeah.
What he's ideally looking for is a SUV type hybrid that can be
Mhm.
utilized by the detectives. And then the car that I was formerly driving, I would drive again. That car is, I think now, 10, 11 years old, maybe close to 12. So he's hoping to change that out for something, like I said, as an SUV where they can, especially for the detectives with equipment and whatnot, and then move the other car back over as for the second in command or whatever you want to term it.
But in terms of Gene's question, I would have thought of the same thing probably at some point.
Well,
If you could have a car that you could use in multiple roles if you needed to.
The detectives utilize an unmarked. I mean, they utilize an unmarked vehicle.
Well,
They
it
need
could be
an
unmarked,
vehicle.
but if, we could always paint it and make it marked if you need it. I mean, my point is, a hybrid SUV is a very special kind of vehicle, and if you had a vehicle that would allow you a little more flexibility in terms of its usage, the role that it might have to play in the future, I mean, I think it's something worth considering. Also, I understand, maybe I don't understand his motivation for wanting to go with the hybrid necessarily. I could, probably think of a bunch of reasons anybody would want to, but I mean, I'm not sure it makes the most sense to
That was
go that way.
what was requested.
That was requested by the
Well,
town board.
Kitty will be very
okay.
happy that you
Yeah.
were
Okay.
looking at a hybrid.
That was
But-
requested, but
Now,
the
the other
next
thing, too,
car
is
for
the hybrid-
administration,
you don't
that we
use
look at the
those
hybrid, because
chases
we can't
as
use them
big
for patrol.
Well, I mean, the administrative cars-
You're
administrative
not
cars-
doing chases, you're not doing.
No, you're
Yeah, it's when you go out to investigate a crime scene.
Okay,
it's-
what if you okay, so let's say you're in the hybrid and you get called
Well,
and
again,
you have no choice, you have to go on a chase.
We're talking
Does it
again.
get in the car or not?
Hybrid. He's looking at a couple cars, like the Ford Fusion, which is not a Prius per se. It's bigger. It's big enough that it can store it can store detective equipment. Ford does have, I guess, not true hybrids, but like a mix.
You can probably get that upstate bid.
Right, mixed packages. And I'm not saying I don't know enough, but that's what, they're looking at. If it was a matter of leasing a patrol type vehicle, the same type of vehicle that we currently use, I don't know. I don't know, what the issues are with that.
This comes out cheaper than leasing a patrol vehicle if we don't need a patrol vehicle. And let's remember that the way the contracts read, administrative sergeant, lieutenant, or whatever, gets a car.
Gets a car.
Because it's not in the contract. It's a crazy contract, but the car comes from the chief. It makes no sense, but the way the contracts read is that the chief, because one of the things that made no sense, the chief gets the option of giving his assistant a vehicle.
And the way it's worked is that the person who has it is generally on call 24/7.
24/7.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm not speaking for the chief. I mean,
Yeah.
he made the request. He made a request to the commission. I know the hybrid, the town board want that. He needs an administrative car. As far as I'm concerned, and since it sees asset and doesn't cost anybody anything,
it's free money, basically.
yeah.
He has, again, I don't know what the costs are, lease versus buy, but what the cost is of the lease. I do know that he has done the math, and he said that a purchase of a used will be a lot cheaper than leasing a vehicle.
Yep.
I understand.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the chair would like to call a vote on to affirm the chief's request for using up to $20,000 in the seized asset account for an administrative car purchase. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so I will send the letter, and he can spend up to 20, but if he can get it better and cheaper.
He will,
Right.
trust me.
And that's really the only reason I'm opposed. I'm not opposed to getting the car. I'm opposed to spending $20,000 on a car.
He's not, I can tell you, he is not gonna do that. He's going to try to find the best. You know, he also doesn't want to get something, what I would say is, he's going to get the most he can for that amount of money. And he is going to be looking to get something that's not gonna be, at Tom's Repair, incurring costs on a weekly basis either.
Sure.
And it's
I
not
mean,
gonna
and
look-
again, the
Sure.
car that he has been a very reliable vehicle.
I mean, I've looked at some of these, not police one, but some of these types of vehicles on auction, and I'm sure you guys get better deals than Mr.
I've never been to auctions.
But it seems to me, and you know, it's very possible that he could pick something up for $14,000, $15,000.
I'm hoping he can.
So I will send an email to the,
Fusion
huh?
on state bid, he could probably get it brand new off state bid.
No, that's what he, you know,
Yeah, so I'll send an email to the, tomorrow, or tonight, to the town, saying that we authorize the request.
You know,
Or
it-
we affirm the request.
I mean,
Okay.
from my dealing with the chief over the years and Randall, he does not spend money. He's as big a tightwad as I am, that's what I can tell you.
I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to
Not
say
as
it.
bad as Gene, but he's as bad as
You know
me.
what,
He's
I
watching the tape
understand
somewhere.
why he's good with money, because I remember doing the budget last year with the chief. And when he sits here, he's on camera, and he's in front of all 5 board members, and he gets grilled, okay? As a department, he gets grilled, and he does it with grace, and he does it with compromise, and he did a very fine job last year, because, you know, we wanted to cut a whole lot out, and the chief came back with 3 different proposals. So, he's not cheap. I'm cheap.
Well,
People call me frugal, but I am cheap.
Well, I use the term.
We warm him up, but
Outside
we-
of the box. And I appreciate that.
We warm him up before he gets to you.
I should have used the term frugal, but I call myself cheap, so I figured I can use the term.
Okay, so I'll send that email to the town indicating that we've affirmed the chief's request for that purchase up to 20,000. Any announcements?
No, I do have one more question.
Oh.
Do you know, are there any current grants you guys are working on right now?
No,
I didn't hear you, Steve.
Are there any current grants that the department is
Oh,
working
okay.
on now?
we're
No.
looking, I've been looking at tracks more than anything, here and there, but there are no RFPs at this point, but
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
yeah, no. Just here and there.
The town, I think that community partnership, I don't know if that really falls under the town or not, but there's this New York State portal that if you have any state grants, you must register. So someone up here has got to register, which would have them coming in. So if anything comes in for you, I guess the supervisor's office would know, or Carol Connolly would know.
And apologize, you made me think of it. As far as grants go, yeah, I mean, for technology, equipment, no. We have applied for the 2014 Police Traffic Safety Grant, which is a combination of the Buckle Up New York and what was known as the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program. They put it together. We also applied for funds for 2014 for the Child Passenger Safety Grant as well. Those have been completed, submitted. We're waiting to hear back.
I have a quick question. My question is, going back to when you sent us the article about the state giving money to Kingston, Poughkeepsie, and Newburgh, being that we are in the middle of that triangle, perhaps this is a good time that we could write a letter to the state and point that out to them and see if there's anything there for us.
Yeah, I wondered why we didn't get any, and I don't know how people applied for it, or did they just give it out?
Those communities are earmarked because of impact, which is it's the state system. So they're normally, the state looks at uniform crime report statistics for Part 1 crimes, and then they make determinations of the communities that are in most need of those funds to try to prevent UCR Part 1 crimes. So we're never going to be.
You don't think we have
running.
any chance? with
No,
that?
I mean, our issues are quality of life versus issues, the different issues in those issues. They're more Part 1 crimes. Not to say that we don't have them, but we definitely don't have them on the same scale that they do, or as often as they do.
Do you think with the money going around and the extra patrols within those areas that it could seep into our community?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
No, and when you said
would that make it?
It makes sense. It does. What you have is an element that will come into New Paltz because they maintain anonymity. We have serious crime, and most of our serious crimes, our students or our residents are the victims more often than not, and the perpetrators are those who don't even reside within the community.
Right.
We applied for and did receive several years ago what they call an Impact Initiative grant, which we received because we are maybe not a community that receives impact grant because of Part 1 UCR crimes, but we were eligible for some additional funds. But again, the grants are few and far between. The funds are less and less, so they base it on those statistics, unfortunately. But we do get the money.
Is it possible that we could be recalculated after, I don't know how long those grants were, but I mean, will they look at?
They'll look at really our Part 1 and Part 2 UCR crimes. They're not, and again, our noise complaints, our violations, the things that you are concerned about with Park Point, which are absolute, they're never going to fall into that category, and that's part of the problem.
If you look at the state report, which I gave you, it has felonies and robberies. It doesn't say Harry was, it doesn't say, it goes to the kind of things that you get in these
and they break
areas,
it out into
killings,
their
muggings,
property,
whatever.
Their property crimes,
Personal crime.
and then
Rape.
crimes against people.
Well, I will say, I mean, we do, again, we're probably up there with most when it comes to the personal crimes, sexual assaults, things like that. But overall, our UCR stats are not going to compare, especially when you're dealing with those more serious crimes with Kingston or Newburgh or Poughkeepsie.
Sure.
What was it? 300 crimes were reported last year, or something. Some minor.
I haven't. Yeah.
I got a copy of the report, and it was because of what you report, the type of crimes they want. We don't,
we
like I
don't
said,
qualify
we,
for crime.
if you look at
good.
Crime is not a crime, like a call is not a call.
yeah, no, that's they don't consider, like if you look at the home burglaries, it's not on that report. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you send in that they ignore on the state report because that's not part of their system of help, so they don't need it. You can go up to the law enforcement thing. Well, I can get you a copy of the report.
Okay. Anything else? Any announcements? Any other matters? I believe the chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Ira, you know it by heart, so you can do it.
What?
Motion for executive session.
Oh, for the purpose of hiring, firing, discipline. You want me to read it?
Yeah, no.
You don't need it.
It's 8:35. All in favor?
Aye.
8:38. Motion. Who's going to second?
I'll second.
Okay, so I don't need this anymore. That was my figure on the seized asset. I figured he said he was going to bring it up. I figured I better go say.
He's getting old. You just want to keep it in the man van. You just want to spruce up the man van. I want to put a light in the siren pack.
Gene, whatever you need, just ask me. We were saying before about supporting something. Just ask me. I have no problem with that. You said something about you going to a meeting and with the...
No, I'm saying if they come here,
Oh, yeah.
although I don't see them try to come here, but I don't know if he's
Yeah,
not.
So,
you guys
I
are
didn't-
willing to pack up?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
done.
we're off camera?
We're good.
This is how cheap Joey is,
Thank
the
you.
chief is. We go to buy